All right. So you came back. That's really, really exciting because I had this bad dream last night that I was going to be standing up here and you all left for lunch and then never came back. So I'm really glad that you came back. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Sunshine from Darkness. This has been a great experience so far. And I'm hoping what I deliver today is going to be really useful for all of you. So first, how many of you have ever had an experience where you've reached for your phone and not even known why you did it? Right? How many of you have ever been on social media and you lost track of time? Right? And how many of us have those devices right on our wrist? Right? How many of you have ever had the time where you reach for your phone to do something and then you forgot what it was that you were doing because you started doing something else? You ever wonder why that happens? Right? Who's in control anyway? Social media, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, X, and a variety of other platforms are engineered deliberately and intentionally to control your attention, to monetize your attention, to exploit your attention. And those platforms don't even care that it's negatively affecting your mental health. Life is hard. But if you look at some of the social media posts, you're going to think, wow, it's supposed to be easy. These people are doing all sorts of stuff that I'm not doing in my life. What the women earlier said about moms. Wow, we get all these posts of, look at these moms who are super happy with their own children. And I'm depressed. What is wrong with me? We live in a world of over-comparison, right? It used to be just my neighbors. I could compare myself to the Joneses. And now with social media, I'm comparing myself to the world. These tech companies with really smart, sophisticated individuals have created algorithms that learn us, that know us. I remember when Facebook came out, it was we're going to connect the world and we'll all be interconnected. And how awesome was that going to be? When the phone came out, how cool was it that I could have a conversation with somebody here and a conversation with somebody in Africa? We could be on opposite sides of the world. I could be seeing the sunrise, they could be seeing the sunset. That was an amazing opportunity. But what social media has done, because it's about money, it's about the almighty dollar, is instead of connecting us, they've separated us. We all have heard the phrase probably that sex sells. You know what they discovered? Outrage keeps you engaged even longer. And that's what's been happening. With these social media platforms, they're creating more and more outrage, more and more separation. And it's all cultivated experiences. They're not actually real. And it's always performative. Imagine every time you interact with people, you're always up on stage and they're always judging you. And it's behind this window that you can't see them, but they post stuff about you. How many of us have heard of cancel culture? And how many really great people got canceled along the way? Right. That's social media. We are separated. We used to be a joined community. And so today, what we're going to cover is we're going to cover the hidden damages that the social media platforms and our over-dependency on devices, which as I was doing research for this talk, they call it digital crack. And we hand it to our 6-year-olds. Here you go, kid. What if it was the lollipop that was crack? Would you hand it to your daughter or your son? No way. But we do that with our phones. We all got stuck in the matrix. We didn't know any better. And when the internet came out, it was going to be really cool. So we're going to talk about how adverse childhood experiences negatively affect us, how trauma or emotional wounding and unconscious programming has made us more susceptible to what the social media companies are doing to us. And then at the end, I'm going to highlight some steps that we can do at a national level, at a state level, and at an individual level to regain control of our attention. And see, when did this start, right? America, which has become fractionated, used to be an America of togetherness. How many boomers we got out here, right? How many Gen Xers? Any millennials? How about Gen Z? Really sorry. Really sorry, Gen Z. It's our fault, not your fault. But you were all born into these devices, and now they're worse than the blankie. How many of us had like a blankie or a toy when we were a kid? And how bad was it if you left it and you didn't have it with you? And how panicked you were? How many of us had that same experience with, where's my phone? Thank goodness Apple came up with the Find My iPhone feature, because I get really freaked out. I set it down somewhere. I don't remember where I left it. It's really troubling. I get a lot of anxiety. I can't go anywhere without that. It used to be I didn't want to leave my house without my keys and my wallet. Now I can go without my wallet. I use this thing for everything. And it's really cool, and there's so many benefits. But the problem is they're controlling us. So when we came out of the war, World War II, and America won, and we stopped evil, we were a unified nation, and kids played outside. We had normal childhoods. And then two major things happened. You know what they are? One, the TV was invented. That was really cool. You know what the second one is? Air conditioning. How many of us would be living in Florida if there was no air conditioning? Right, yeah, thank goodness for air conditioning. But what that did is that brought us inside. We stopped being on our porches, we stopped knowing our neighbors, we stopped connecting to our world around us. And that was the start. But it was still glorious through the 70s, even though there was lots of bad stuff happening in the world, and into the 80s. And then the 80s ushered in another thing that happened. We knocked down the Berlin Wall. There was the end of communism. Here we go. But do you know what they filled it up with? This is a crazy thought. Do you know what they filled it up with? Would you be interested? They filled it up with scaring us. Because you know what happened in the late 80s and the early 90s? We started learning that there were priests that were molesting kids. What? Priests? No way. We started learning that there were problems in certain communities, or somebody might abduct a child. I remember this video that came out. It was about safe kids, and I was a TV kid, right? Any of us grow up latchkey? Yeah, right? It was really cool. We got time to play, but we could be home by ourselves. And I remember there was this thing that would come on and say, don't play in a vacant lot, don't stay out late when it's dark. And I'm like 7, right? It was almost as much pressure as Smokey put on me. Right? Smokey the Bear, you ever watch him? Pointing at you, right? You're the only one that can prevent forest fires. I'm 7. That is a lot of pressure. But the 80s brought with us a lot of weird things. How many of us remember the push against drugs being bad? 80s was huge. And that wonderful commercial that made no sense. There's a frying pan on the stove with butter in it. And it says, this is your brain, okay? They crack an egg and they pop it into the pan, and they say, this is your brain on drugs. And the worst part of the commercial is at the end. Any questions? Yes. What does that have to do with drugs or my brain? That has to look like breakfast to me, and I'm getting a little hungry. What? I don't get it. Never explained it at all, right? But we started to make people fearful In the 90s, we started to go, wait a minute, our kids are not safe in the world, and we don't know our neighbors as much, and we can't let them out. And then what parents got to do, which was the greatest thing in the world for parents, you know what it is? Oh my goodness, it's the best thing in the world. We got to go on play dates with our children. How fun is that? That I get to take them to the playground and sit next to their friend's parent, who I don't really want to talk much to or doesn't want to talk much to me. And then my kid doesn't even want to play with the other kid. They want me to play with them. And I don't fit in the slides. I'm not that big of a guy, but they're uncomfortable, right? How hard is it to do the, monkey swings are not fun when you're an adult. But that's what we did. We had to do play dates with our children. We had to take them wherever we went. We couldn't let them out of our sight. You can't ride around the block. Oh my goodness, that's dangerous. And then guess what happened in, I think, 2007? Apple, come on, Steve Jobs created the first iteration of this thing, man. And this thing was great. You could do so much. And then they had a front-facing camera, which got us all to be self-absorbed with our selfies. I don't need you to take my picture anymore. I can do it myself. We even have selfie sticks. Where is one? We got one out here somewhere. We got selfie sticks. They're fantastic. I don't need to talk to anybody, right? And that's what started to happen. We totally took away childhood, right? Then we've got these phones, and we know that they're indoors so that they're safe. And that's one of the major problems. In our culture today, we overprotect our children in the real world, and we underprotect our children online. That's the problem. Because we think they're safe, they're with us. And all of us that grew up watching TV, that was a one-way interaction. We watch the TV. These are all two-way interactions. Not only that, what these algorithms have learned is how to keep me more engaged. That's why I can show you my social media feed, and you can show me your social media feed, and we are getting not at all the same information. That's what separated us more. So now we gave children these devices thinking that they were safe. And what we've learned is once social media became widespread and people had widespread phones, about 2012, the rates of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicide skyrocketed for our children, all the Gen Zs. Skyrocketed. Because that stuff came out as their frontal cortexes were developing there through puberty. How many of us would want to go back to being in middle school? Right? The best years of your life? I remember I had an uncle when I was a kid. I'm 14. I don't feel good, acne. I'm being picked on. I'm made fun of. I'm an emotional boy that was not good. And he told me, these are the best years of your life. And I thought to myself, really? Like, this is the pinnacle? Like, if it doesn't get better than this, why are people still around? Like, gosh, it was awful. Add to that the performative nature of social media, and everybody sees it. Oh, and not only it's just in my school, it can go viral around the world. One of the things that college professors talk about with students today is that they're not able to get students to disagree with each other because of the fear of the ramifications of disagreement. Isn't that crazy? We can't have regular discord anymore. And that's what started it. We gave them the phones. We didn't know that they were damaging. Heck, we're in the matrix too, right? And it's all the dings, the bings, the swipes, the searches, everything are all tiny, tiny, tiny little hits of dopamine. It's a dopaminergic effect. That's what's happening with social media. So add to that the world of trauma, right? And I know trauma is a big word, and we all understand the big T versions of trauma. We could call them, military wartime horror, violent death. We could call it, emotional trauma, wounding, sexual violence, molestation. We all know big ones. But there's not a single person in this audience, actually on the planet today, that can say they've not experienced a single moment of trauma. They're all the emotional woundings. And the question becomes, why don't emotional wounds heal? Isn't that weird? Right? Physical wounds heal. If I broke my foot when I was 11, and I told you about it right now, and I'm as emotional as when it first happened, you're all gonna look at me like I'm crazy. What is wrong with this guy? I see him, he's walking all over the place, his foot is fine. Why is he so upset? The difference, if I told you about what my uncle did to me when I was 11, and I started to get a little emotional, you'd all go, well, of course. But why? Why do those physical wounds heal and the emotional wounds don't? Even though we have the saying that time is the healer of all wounds, just not those. It's weird, right? So what if emotional wounds can heal? And what if they haven't? Whoa, now that would be a sip like that. Wow, all right. Only just a little embarrassing. So what if emotional wounds haven't healed because of a very different thing? And what if the very different thing is the way that we've been treating them? So how many of you have ever heard of the term repression? Right? So repression is when I'm going through something really, really troubling, I'm not able to fully express in that moment of survival how it was making me feel. I never got to process. And so instead, the idea is that I buried it. I repressed it. I locked it behind closed doors. I put it in the closet. And you know what I do as a therapist, or what we were trained to do? I don't do that anymore. Gosh, that was awful when I did. But what we were trained to do as therapists, we're trained to help the person unlock the door. We're trained to help the person dig up those strong, painful emotions and help that person get those bad feelings out of them. It's awful. Not just for the client, but for the therapist, unless you like watching horror movies, eating popcorn. Oh, no, keep going. Yeah, feel more of it. Yeah, no, more tears, right? And that's the idea, is we've got to get it out. And hey, guess what? After throwing up, I feel a little bit better, right? So after I did a session with the therapist, I felt a little bit better. There was a major problem. Do you want to know what the major problem was? I still get re-triggered by the same stuff. What the heck? So what if it's not about getting the bad feelings out, but it's a different solution? It's about getting the good news in. What if the error isn't that I repressed it, but that when I went through that awful experience, emotionally my brain short-circuited. It froze it. And at that deeper level where it got frozen, and typically like a short little GIF file, the worst of the worst repeating over and over again, at that level, that part of my brain doesn't know it ended. It doesn't know it's over. It never got the good news. The awful moment stopped. That's a different thought. That's a different process. Have you ever noticed somebody starts telling you about something that they went through that was awful, and they're no longer with you anymore? They're like back there in that moment. Why is that happening? Right? Why? I'm nice, I'm kind, I'm kindly listening to him. What the heck just happened? What happened is, emotionally, their brain confused the thought, the memory, thinking it's the experience. That's why they're having that emotional reaction. So what we discovered is, it's not about getting it out. It's about getting good news in, and it's about unplugging the memories. So emotionally, the brain can experience what happened as data. Think of it like changing the relationship to it. We're not changing what happened, but because it's coded in the brain is still happening, we're changing the relationship so it's now experienced as data about something that happened versus happening. That's a much simpler, a much faster, and a much easier process, and only requires one thing. One. Do you want to know what the one thing is? Anybody interested? It's kind of cool. It's intending to be emotionally present. Therapist job, practitioner job, keep person present. But if you get the client to intend to be present, that is the first part that's going to start to unplug it, because if they start going there and your job as the practitioner is to notice it, you can do everything you know how to do to get them to be back present. That's the first start to unplug it. So I'll outline a lot more about that, but that's a very different thing. So if we go back to social media, right, and the problems that's happened in our society, how many of you have an idea of how many notifications a typical teenager gets in a day? Any guesses? On average, okay, 257 notifications. That's crazy. How many times do you think a teenager taps their phone? Over 100 times a day. And how long do you think the average teenager is on a digital platform that's not about school, not doing schoolwork? Because we're using computers for school now, right? It's 7 to 9 hours a day that the average teen is on those digital devices. That is a lot of time. They're not getting any play. Play has dropped to less than an hour a day, unsupervised play. And what do all mammals need to develop? We need play. We need time to learn. We need the ability to develop resiliency. In the 90s, with all that scared stuff, we bubble wrapped our children, thinking that that would keep them safe. And maybe it did a little. But what it didn't do is it didn't allow them to develop resiliency. It didn't allow them to get stronger, right? How many of us have gone through troubling experiences, right? How many of you, when you were going through that troubling experience, had signed up to go through it? Right? Nobody, except there's one category of people. You know the one category of people? They're the Navy SEALs. They're a different group, but they sign up to go through adversity, to get stronger. I mean, they literally tell them, we're going to go ahead and drown you in the pool, but somebody will save you. Cool, I'm in. Like, what? No, I'm good. I don't need to do that, right? Nobody signs up for adversity to become stronger. That's not why we do it. But we all get stronger out of making it through adversity. It's the challenges in life, the micro challenges that allow us to grow. And there's been a whole generation that we've been catering and coddling so that they don't get those chances to grow. How many of us thought participation awards would be a really good idea, right? Hey, you know, you just get an award for participating. Yay, me, right? We've got all of this material online, and then we look at what's been happening to our teen girls, and then what's been happening to young men. Did you know that 1 out of every 7 male between the age of 25 and 34 is either living at home, not having a job, or both? 1 out of 7. That the percentage of men that are going to college has dropped all the way down to 36%. Our young men, different than our young girls, right? The young girls were into more of the comparison. What this person does, what Sally said to Susie, and all of that. And so we see the damage of social media with them at a much younger age. But they're continuing to go to college or continuing to further themselves, they're going. Where our young men, do you know what happened with them? Oh, it's really cool. Gaming. How many of us like video games? Okay, I got a secret that I'll tell you. I was really, really lucky as a child, okay? In 1980, Pac-Man came out, right? Pac-Man came out, and I'm 7. And my stepfather owns an arcade. And oh my goodness, how much time did I spend in the arcade playing video games? I loved video games. But do you know that there was a major difference about the video games then? Not only were the graphics better, right? They were at the arcade, because we got Atari at home. How fun was that? Pong. I mean, you couldn't play that for that long, right? But all of the games in the arcade, because you had to pay for them, had an ending. You would die. Your player would lose their life. You'd have to start over, right? And then what did we start doing? We brought video games home with Nintendo, with Sega. That's a better drink than the sip. Okay. Oh, but we brought the video games home. And that wasn't so bad because you would play your video games with your friends at your house. We'd all gather and we'd all play the video games together. Now, you can't do that. Now, everything is online and it's curated. Now, did you know that there are young men and young women, not as many gamers women, but there are some, right, that literally are playing games for 18 hours straight? That there's been some cases where the guy was left with their young child and they're a gamer and they forget and the child dies. Like, that's awful. They have forums of young men trying to figure out what is the best adult diaper to wear for gaming. Seriously? And these men have stopped learning how to interact. They became more socially isolated. My friends are online. We're missing real world connections. That's the problem. We're missing real world connections, right? And so how many of you would be interested in understanding what the social media companies have done and how they've hijacked our brain and our pleasure systems? Do you want to know that? Okay. So it's really habits. How many of you have ever heard of Ivan Pavlov? Ring a bell? Right? He was the researcher that learned that when he would pair food with the ringing of the bell, that the dog associated the ringing of the bell as the production of food, and so he could ring the bell and it would produce salivation in the dog. That's what we call now classic conditioning, right? Gambling is a form of an addiction, right? What does gambling do? What does gaming do? What do the social media platforms do? Oh, and I'll tell you this, because this is really interesting. We are hardwired for survival, for procreation, right? So in human beings, dopamine goes up 50% when we eat. Pretty good. 100% when we have sex. Awesome. 300% if you do cocaine. Not good. 100% if you're gaming, and 100% when you're swiping on social media. So literally, we are giving our children devices that cause the same spike in dopamine, not for pleasure, but simply for relief, that sex does. Really? That's what we want to be giving our 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids? It's crazy. It's crazy what we're doing, and we didn't even know it. And so when we think about what's happening in our brain, what's happening in our country, it's habits. And habits get started very simply. There's a precipitating trigger, and the trigger could be boredom, loneliness, anxiety, could be feeling down or bad, could be feeling ostracized or not connected. And that's the trigger. And then there's the behavior. It's the swipe, it's the scroll, it's the bet, it's the ding, it's the binge watch of Netflix, and in that moment, it causes a temporary relief. Not pleasure, again, relief. So I'm distracted. And then, because my brain is a great learning organism, did you know that our brain is designed to learn things as fast as it can, to put it in automatic processing, so I never have to think about it? And that's really great. How many of us would want to have to relearn how to put our pants on every day? Holy cow, that would be difficult. Really glad our brain does that. But with this habit loop, what it causes is we're stuck in a perpetual reward cycle because the brain went, hey, wait a minute, that worked, let's do it again. And every time we do it, it reinforces it and reinforces it and reinforces it and reinforces it. And that's the habit loop. Can you go to slide 7, please? That's it. Social media addiction, trigger. You got the behavior, the relief, and then our brain will do it again. That's the problem. That's why we're all hooked. That's why we're not conscious. Most of us are mindlessly going through our lives, not paying attention. We reach for things, we're on media, and they've gotten our attention. And that's the problem. The social media companies are not out for our best interest, they're out to make money. And we are not the consumer, we are the product. They are selling our information, right? The phone companies had to not do that. They didn't get to keep our information. But we all signed these things with Google and Facebook that we're fine, take all of our information that you want so that you can curate it, so that you can control me. Oh yeah, well, if I want to get on the platform, I do. And that's what's happened. And that's the issue. So would you be interested in learning a really simple thing that you can do that is an antidote? And a lot of it is what was talked about earlier today. It's a really easy antidote, and it comes from a researcher by the name of Ellen Langer. Ellen Langer is a Harvard social psychologist, and she's like the godmother of mindfulness. And I don't mean meditation, I mean mindfulness. Mindfulness is the simple act of noticing. Mindfulness is about being aware. See, I bet you didn't know that social media is like the puppeteer, and there are invisible strings that are connecting us to unconsciously scroll, swipe, bet, play over and over and over again. Just the simple act of noticing, taking a beat, taking a pause, will interrupt the habit loop. So it kind of goes like this. The next time that you've got the urge to reach for your phone, just for a moment, ask yourself the question, get curious. What's actually going on with me that's wanting me to reach for the phone? Use curiosity, and you can use curiosity by even just using the sound of curiosity, because we all learn sounds before we learn language. So repeat after me. I'm going to do it, and then we'll all do it together. The sound of curiosity. Go, Just that small piece of curiosity, I can still reach for the phone. But now I become curious about why I have, and it stops being automatic, and it stops being unconscious. Because the antidote is getting out of the mindless loops that we're in and becoming more mindful, beginning to pay attention. And that's what the social media companies don't want. They want our engagement because they make more money. They don't care about our well-being. What they learned, and this came out from the Facebook files, they learned in Instagram that the more toxic the posts are, the higher engagement they get. And they even had the conversation, hey, do you think we should maybe make them a little less toxic? No, that will lessen our engagement. That's crazy. They don't care about us. They care about making money. And they have billions upon billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. How many of us can remember when we were young that $1 million seemed like a lot of money, right? $1 million seemed like a lot of money. Doesn't seem like as much money anymore. And that's crazy. Did you know that 1 million seconds is 11 days? 11. Anybody have a guess on how many 1 billion seconds is? It's going to blow your mind. 32 years. 32 years. Right. They're making billions, and our health is declining. Our mental health is declining. And they didn't connect us, they separated us. And we have more separation politically than we ever did. It's crazy. And so, how do we combat these things on our own? What do we need to do? How can we make a difference? I'd like to share with you a really simple tool. And you guys got a lot of great tools from our panel earlier. But how many of you have ever heard of the physiological sigh? Anybody ever heard of that before? It's also called the crying breath. And it's called the crying breath because it's something that your body naturally does when you're hysterically crying to calm down. So it's like, what's that? I took a deep breath in and then a quick breath in to fill my lungs. And then it's a long exhale. So the physiological sigh literally takes somebody out of fight flight and brings back their prefrontal cortex so that they can be more present, more aware. And we're going to practice the physiological sigh. That's going to be slide 8, please. Hey, look, you got it. Isn't that great? So I'm going to demo it first, and then I'm going to show you something that you can use really simply in any argument that you have, and nobody's going to know that you're doing it, okay? I learned that part from a defense attorney. His name is Jefferson Fisher, and he teaches this to his clients when they're on the witness stand, so that before they answer a question, they do the process. But how we're going to do the physiological sigh, and what you're going to notice different in you, is we're going to do it 4 times. And how it's going to be is you're going to take a very big, deep breath in through your nose, and at the top of the inhale, don't do it yet, we'll do it together. At the top of the inhale, you're going to take a quick breath in, and then it's going to be a long exhale through your mouth. So I'm going to demo it first. It goes like this. We are going to repeat this 4 times, and you're going to notice that your body will start to settle down, and about 15 seconds later, heart rate comes down. So here we go. Breathe in. At the top, quick. And again. And again. And one last time. And now just check in your body. What do you start to notice happening in your body? Isn't that kind of interesting? Right. Now, you can do that at any time you're stressed. But of course, people are going to notice that and see it. So would you be interested in learning the way to do it even more subtly so that nobody's going to notice that you're doing it? And I'll start by showing it to you with a little bit more so that you can see it. It's not going to be breathing out of the mouth. It's going to be breathing out of the nose the second time. But it goes like this. Now, you all heard that, but I can make it even subtler. And you don't even notice that I'm really doing it. So what he learned is, if the attorney asks his witness a question, then all they do is they do this. And then they answer the question. Because immediately it takes them out of that fight, flight, freeze. It causes their prefrontal cortex to be on board. And what the other person's experience is that you're simply listening to the question to provide a thoughtful answer. Isn't that cool? So you can do that in arguments that you're having with your children. None of us have arguments with our kids, right? They're just perfect. They do everything we say, right? You can use that in arguments with your partner, because that never happens either, right? We all get along wonderfully. I mean, us in the therapy world, we never have problems a lot. We don't have our own stuff going on, right? Yeah, no, not at all. So that's what we want to be doing. So what are the things that we can actually do on a national level, right? How are we going to help our country get back on track? Because this is not just affecting us, it's affecting our children, and it's affecting things around the world. So the first thing that we can do is we can urge our government at a national level, Congress, to enact laws that require social media companies to have an age limit. Oh, we should probably do that with pornography too. Thank goodness Florida has. But kids have access to that too, and that's not great. Unrealistic expectations, everybody's into their siblings, or step-siblings, it's just awful, like crazy, right? That's one of the things we want to do, is on a national level, can we get certain bans and social media companies having to be responsible? Second, maybe we should change the law. The law that said, you know what, anything you see on social media, they are not culpable or responsible. Maybe they should be a little more responsible for the stuff that they're putting out there, or allowing people to put out there, Because we've got these influencers, and I'm sure all of them don't have mental illnesses. I'm sure everything, because they're all about activation, don't have any of their own problems, right? And then our kids are seeing that and going, this is what we need to do too. So that's on a national level. At a state level, we need to have phone-free schools, or at least phone-free academic time. If I have this thing in my pocket, I am constantly and always having partial attention. I'm constantly and always monitoring what this might show me. If there's a text that comes, I got to check it because I got to be in the know. So we need to, at a state level, have phone-free academic time, and not even when they pass through the hallways, just phone-free time, right? What do we want to do at our own home? Oh, this is going to be the hard one. Because, I use my phone all the time. Well, what Jonathan Haidt recommends in his book, The Anxious Generation, is he says, delay. So if you can wait until 14 to give your child a phone device that has access to the internet and stuff, wait until they're 14. Give them a flip phone. Have them have one of the watches. He says wait until 16 before any access to social media, right? Let's get them through puberty, where they're already dealing with all the challenges of what it's like to go through the changes. Let's get them through that, right? At home, we want to park the phones out of the bedroom, because the other thing that they're doing, along with fragmenting attention, is they're causing sleep disturbances. Kids are on their phone too late at night, and I'm not getting up to monitor that. I'm tired, I'm going to bed, but they're on their phones too long, right? And we already know with the screens that that's not great for great sleep. So phones need to be parked out. We need to have time like dinners where we have phone-free time. Maybe we want to shrink the amount of time that people get to spend on social media. Because the big thing that we want to do, life is hard. It's difficult. Maybe it's supposed to be. Maybe that's what strengthens the muscles. Maybe that's what makes us more resilient. We want to have the opportunity to have awareness. Give ourselves, when that trigger happens, just a little space to notice, to be aware. And in that space is where resiliency builds. So look for yourself, what is the smallest next step that you can take to help your own household, to help you, to help your children? And do that today. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your attention. And I very much appreciate being here.